Well, good evening and welcome to the Sportsman for the last tackle, as ever, on this Wednesday evening. And with me in the studio, Paul Sculthorpe and Kyle Amor. And gents, we're approaching the round 10 mark of the Betfred Super League, and the gap between first and 10th is 4 points. Couldn't really ask for a better first third of the season, could you, Carl?
No, absolutely not. That's what we want. A third of the way in, there's no clear running and rider, is there? Ahead of the pack. Perfect, really. It's more of that to come for the next two-thirds.
I think top three, probably, you predict it, Saints, Wigan, Catalans. I think we all thought that they'd been in and around it, but I don't think the gap between those three and the chasing pack is perhaps as wide as some people thought.
No, definitely not. Well, you're always going to have your usual suspects up there, but then you look at likes of Warrington, Huddersfield, Hull KR, who've had another excellent season so far. You look at what Leeds did last year. Now I think there's 8 to 10 teams that are capable of beating anybody, and it's proving for a great league table.
We'll go through the round 9 games in a bit, Carl, but just the results, when you just look at those 6 games in isolation, probably tell you all you need to know. Nothing really went as we thought it would.
No, and those results have kind of helped that stat that you've just said there. Obviously, Lee turning over Catalan pretty convincingly as well. Hull KR doing a dent on Wigan. So, and of course, Saints managing to scrape through against Huddersfield. So it's all locked in there. And like I said at the start, it's what we want, isn't it? You don't want really, one side leading away by 4 or 5 points or whatever. You want it as consistent as you can, and that's what we've got so far.
And it's kind of stacked with narrative as well, isn't it? Because if you look across those clubs, Sam Burgess, albeit they lost at the weekend, but he seems to have Warrington moved in the right direction. The Salford story continues to be interesting. OKR, as you've mentioned, kind of performing again. We talk about, again, that top three so often, but again, the chasing pack are kind of providing so many of the headlines.
Yeah, they are, and I think what you've always got when some of these so-called lesser teams are playing, your big favourites, I think they do raise the game, and I think that's something. Certainly something we always spoke about at Saints was, you get some of these clubs, and it's their Wembley, it's their big game, trying to beat these big sides. So, and it's great for the game, because you want to go into games, certainly as a neutral, of not knowing what's going to happen. And seeing some great games because of that.
But we're heading into this middle third of the season now, where at the start everyone's excited to get out the blocks, get as many points on the board. It's this part where 1 or 2 teams can get a bit comfortable and fall by the way. The last third takes care of itself. You're gearing up towards the highest place finish. You've got the excitement of the grand final, the playoffs, etc. But this middle third now is where your teams like London, where your teams like Hull FC, they will pick one of the big boys off, and the challenge for the teams is not for them to let that happen to them.
I think it's where with injuries as well. Some teams are picking up injuries. Some teams, like Castleford and Lee this week, have had a lot of players back, and I think you see ebbs and flows of the team's performance because of that. And there's other teams who've gone pretty well all year, who will start picking up injuries throughout the middle of the season, and then all matters, doesn't it, at the business end at the end.
There's another factor coming into this, which may not be a factor. I'll come to you on this one, Carl, because obviously you'd have experienced it more recently. It's the 1st of May, which means that players that don't have a club for next year can start talking to other clubs. The rumours are already to start to fly around. I know every player will just tell you they're focused on the job at hand, but is the reality when you get to this time of year that certain people's heads start to turn? Does the focus change a little bit? Can you feel that dynamic shift?
I don't think as a playing group you feel that. I think as a player individually you feel that. I think, I was quite lucky that I always signed sort of long-term contracts, really. It was only towards the last 2 years where you were signing 1-year deal, and as you were getting older, you were the last one to be decided, so you had to wait and wait and wait. But I think for the players, regardless of whether they, if they're off contract and no one's, as long as they're in that 17 and they're doing everything they can to be in that 17, well, it's like stocks and shares. If you're playing every single week, your stock's going to be higher. You will find a club. The challenge for those players, the ones who are on the periphery or who are in and out of the squad, is how does it mentally affect them? Have they got the resilience to stay in it and do the right thing by their teammates and keep doing the right thing by the club and playing, knowing that there may or may not be a future there? And so often we've seen it that when a player, just stays in the fight, Scully, he gets a reward at the end of the year, and he gets another year deal, how he operates and conducts himself around the playing group. So look, there's plenty for it to go at, but for those players who are off contract, look, you're still playing. You've got an opportunity to still be in the shop window, and you've got to see past that.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting few months, as it always is, to kind of see where the chips fall, which players end up where for next season. But let's keep the focus on this year and a look at round 9. We'll start with St Helens, obviously 2 former Saints in the room. Kyle, the performance against Huddersfield, not vintage St Helens by a long, long way.
No.
Struggled through for a lot of it. But that steeliness to come from 12 points down and then win it kind of that way with that drop goal, probably a sign that that's still there, that mentality, that kind of champion mentality.
Yeah, look, and sometimes, the very good teams find a way, even when they're not playing well, they still find a way to win. You had to kind of feel for Huddersfield, really. They defended incredibly well. Just the second half, Saints went back to an older version of themselves and tried to strangle their opposition. And I thought even with all that possession and territory, they should have really scored more points, but they didn't. They left it late for Johnny Lomax to put one over. But I think the bigger and more worrying picture that I sort of came away with, I was watching it at home and I couldn't believe how quiet and eerie it sounded in the stadium. I think Johnny Lomax referenced it in an interview after it. It almost reminded me, dare I say, of when Kieran Cunningham was coaching, and there was almost an expectation of the team to fail. It was like they were waiting for something bad to happen. Really, it had zero atmosphere in there. And they're a very tough crowd to please, I say, at Helens, and they demand a certain style of rugby. Now, they got it in the second half, but not through attacking, but through defence. And I just felt that there wasn't really a good feel around the club at that time in the first half.
Well, there's a lot to be said for winning ugly, Scully, but it feels ridiculous. This is the strange thing about this with Saints, because they're top of the league.
Exactly.
And we're sat here talking about things not being right and things being like, that back end of Kieran Cunningham's time. St Helens are top of the league. They won that game. Where do you take the kind of confidence but the negatives? How do you organise those two things and make sure that they're not overlapping?
That's a massive thing at the moment, is the confidence. I think that's a big part of certainly what we're talking about, Saints. Defence is sound. Defence is always, it's aggressive, line speed. They can always win games with defence. What you've got to do against the best teams as well, you've got to score points, and that is where they're struggling at the moment. And I watched that game. Saints up until 79th minute and 35 seconds had never been in front. They went 12-0 down. They got back to 12-all, and then Johnny comes up with a piece of magic. But you look at even as much as the drop goal, you've got less than 30 seconds left in a game on an attacking opportunity. And other than Darryl Clark looking for Johnny Lomax, nobody was set to do anything. No. So it looked like the organisation, the lack of... And I think the players have got to take responsibility. I know Paul Wellens very well, and Carl does. He's an exceptional coach, a very, very good coach. So everything can't be pointed Paul's way. Players have got to take responsibility, and I think there's been changes in selection because of that. Some due to injuries as well. But, the players have got to take responsibility on playing the St Helens way as well. Them fans expect a certain amount of entertainment, and that's what wins games as well. You've got to be able to do both sides of the game, and at the moment, the attacking is certainly struggling.
Just want to get a quick word on Huddersfield.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we've spoken an awful lot there about St Helens, but had Eastern Marston played, that game would have been dead and buried at half-time. Jake Bibby drops the ball 3 times with Adam Swift outside of him. That combination of Masters and Swift is as good as you'll see across any team so far this season. And if he'd have played there, it could have got a whole lot uglier for St Helens. But, I just thought, obviously, a word on what Ian Watson's done. Obviously, it didn't go well last year. They failed miserably in terms of what they had at their disposal, but he's just bubbling along nicely now, and they've got some attacking threat, no doubt about that.
Moving on to Friday, if there was any question about it, there certainly isn't anymore. Halkir are not going away, Carl.
No, they're not going away at all, are they? I thought they played and approached that game in a perfect way. I thought Wigan were I thought they dipped the toe in. I thought physically they just were not at the races whatsoever in that first half. And, 18-0 against the side that's chasing a top 4 finish, you give yourself far too much of a hill to climb, and that proved to be the case. I thought Ulkea again, they just did exactly what they needed to do, carried hard, carried direct. They moved the ball as well, which opened up that opportunity for when they did need to punch in and behind the ruck, through Litton, through Parcell. Wigan just couldn't handle it.
It's probably a timely reminder that Wigan are still very much on a journey. Brilliant for big parts of this season. Obviously coming into it champions, brilliant in that World Club Challenge game, but the next level is to be brilliant every week.
Yeah,
isn't it?
and I think Wigan, they've always had frailties on attack. But the one thing Wigan have always prided themselves on is defence. And you look at that 18-0, and the shot for me, looking back at highlights as well, was Liam Farrell was responsible for 2 of them. And there's somebody who leads the way week in, week out, and with his own performance, and an outstanding professional. So, teams do have that moment, and Wigan certainly had one on Friday.
Well, I mean, without taking anything away from Hull KR, you mentioned there about Liam Farrell. You're dead right. It's that is one for the collector's book when he has that kind of defensive performance. But Wigan team need to be better. Like they've got to be. If Liam Farrell has an off day, it doesn't mean they lose 18-0. They're all in it together, and I think that's what would have disappointed Matty Peet the most. The fact that they just didn't handle the start, the first 40 at all.
Lee getting some bodies back, there was a feeling of that game that it kind of just clicked.
Well, this was the result that no one's seen coming. You could argue Hull KR at Hull KR. You knew it would be a tight game. I don't think the margin of the win many people would have predicted, but this one certainly not. Catland Dragons going over to Lee and not even registering a try. Well, and then obviously in the flip side of that, Lee scoring 30. John Asiata coming back. I haven't actually seen the game, so how much he was involved, but no coincidence there. Dream Team 13, so good last year. Him and that left edge of Lachlan Lamb and Latelli and Charnley. But having Asiata back, he's the key from the middle of the park out wide, isn't he?
2 teams doing it tough, Castleford and London. Big win for Cass Scully. Still a long way to go, still kind of a lot of progress to be made for them, but just feel like Craig Lingard is just starting to get some traction there.
Yeah, definitely, and I think they'll take a lot of confidence out of that performance, 40-0 against London. And Tex Hoy obviously enjoyed his debut. He looked to add a bit more flair to that Castleford side, which I think has been lacking. They've got a real young side, Castleford as well, and again, they got a few bodies back, and it's good to see an improvement in performance for them.
And then Saturday, Salford and Warrington only ever seem to do bangers when they play against each other. Always seems to be a classic. We got that again. Salford genuine playoff threats off the back of that performance, but it was tough.
Look, I'm still going to say no. Look, they've done unbelievably well, far better than what I would have thought. Brad Singleton's a good mate of mine. He rings me every week singing the Salford Reds are rising every time they get one of these wins. But a brilliant performance again. I think how Warrington had been going, a bit of a shock, a bit of a reality check maybe for those guys as well. But Paul Rowley announcing that he's staying, has that sort of galvanised the team and made them push on. I'm not too sure, but a brilliant performance from them and well done.
Could pick one of a number of players, but someone we talked about a lot, Scully, Mark Sneed. He's having a kind of Benjamin Button style part of his career here. He just seems to get fine wine. He's getting better and better. Yeah,
he is. He's the main talisman, isn't he, for that team? Just directs play. Best kicking game in Super League, and it's priceless for the Salford team. I said that to back up Kyle's. Can they be a team that push for the playoffs? It's just that consistency, isn't it? And for me, that's the question about the team that they beat. Warrington, they come out with a performance like they did against Saints, and then they nearly get beat off Leeds the following week, and then they get beat off Salford. They need to be better than that if they're going to be a championship side.
Sunday, Kyle, I'm going to put this kind of theory to you. Leeds beat Hull FC. Hull FC fans leave the ground the happier of the 2 sets of supporters.
Yes, no, definitely. I was at that game. I thought what Hull FC fans got to see was probably a performance that they hadn't seen this season, a committed team. There was one instance where they put a kick in with 13 minutes left, and there was literally 10 players all screaming down the field as one line. Now, obviously, they didn't go on to win it. They've got the 2 young halves at the moment, haven't they, Smith and Charles, and that's going to take time. And particularly Charles, he showed some nice little touches in there. But what you got was, fans want to see that, don't they? Fans can understand where the club are at in terms of what they've got. The players they've brought in haven't quite got it. It's been a whole lot of turmoil. It's been a bit of a circus, to be honest. But what fans, want to see and expect to see is a bunch of men trying their absolute best. And that's what they got on Sunday. Leeds did enough to win the game, of course, and I can't still, we're round 9, I can't weigh up what a Leeds Rhinos consistent team looks like, because we're just not getting it. You know, I've no idea what they do when they come out onto the field. There doesn't really seem to be any kind of structure to what they do, but you know, they're picking up wins. So, you know, long may that continue for them. But for Hull, you know, a much better performance, and they're going to need to keep doing that.
It's a funny thing for both of them. They're both big clubs. You've both played for big clubs. But the Leeds thing is bizarre because, like you say, the form, actually, the wins and losses isn't awful, but they've spent a load of money on players. Yeah. The Rowan Smith's into the kind of third season, second and a half, 2.5 seasons doing this. And it just doesn't feel like it's clicking yet.
I think the league positioning says it all. You know, they're sat in 8th place, and that is a lack of consistency throughout their performances week in, week out. As a Leeds fan, you must worry what you're going to get. You know, every single week. And you know they're missing a few bodies now and a few strike players. You know, Ash Hanley, Harry Newman. You know, Momorowski's looks like he's out for a significant period.
I think Scully's just nailed it. Hey, when the Rhinos fans come to the game, you don't know what you're going to get. They have no. I don't think they have an identity of how they play the game. You know what I mean? Like, you know, when we were talking, you talked about Wigan, how they're notorious for defending and they work so hard doing that. Saints, when you know they like to put teams in corners and stuff. I don't see where Leeds Rhinos' identity is in terms of how they play.
Well, round 9 of the Betfred Super League in the books, ready to do it all again in round 10. We'll look at that very shortly, but of course, here on the Sportsman, we bring you live a rugby league, and you can get your fix this Sunday from Betfred League One. Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Sportsman.
Towards the corner and scoring in the corner.
He is going to score in the corner. That is a remarkable finish.
For the corner, and Leoburt's in.
Partington all the way to the line.
And it's Tamsin Renew. The pass from Harley Dodd.
Wonder they're going to get them a touchdown. Right through the post. Can they get on the end of it? Yes, they can. He's gone for the same ball, and it's going to work.
Beautiful.
It's going to be able. Is he able to strike one through the post? He might score the winner.
Brings it up to the line, drops it off to Hazard, who reaches through. Now it's on, perhaps. He's got it. Yeah, the action continues here on the Sportsman on Sunday. Betfred League One action, top of the table, Keighley Cougars against Hunslet. Kyle, you're coming to Keighley with me on Sunday for the commentary team. A lot of talk about Oldham in that league and the noises that they're making, but Keighley, top of the league, undefeated, going about the business quietly. I'm looking forward to seeing it on Sunday.
Yeah, both those and Oldham, you're right, undefeated. Keithley, of course, playing one more game. He had a great win over at Rochdale, 42-30, so defensively maybe not quite there, but again, you know, they managed to, they're attacking at fun, aren't they, and scoring a lot of points. Hunslet sitting in 4th, beat the Crusaders in a close game. So, you know, it's a top 4 game already, and one that we'll look forward to bringing you on.
Yeah, so that's our live action this weekend. Betfred League One, 3 o'clock kickoff from Cougar Park. Keighley against Hunslet, and of course we are counting down to take the final steps on the road to Wembley.
It's a Betfred Challenge Cup semi-final.
There is just one place left at Wembley.
Tiptoes down the touchline. What a beautiful drive from St Helens. Has Renew got the legs? Will she outkick Tara Jones? Yes, she will.
He sprints at the line, Field with the dummy! What a try that is! Sheffield!
And Fair Gaskin gets the drop goal. But it's St Helens who are the first team through to the Challenge Cup final.
Schneider waits for the chance. Schneider sends it on its way! Against Wigan.
And it's the cup holders, St Helens against York Valkyrie.
Yeah, Yeah, that one whets the appetite for a big day out in Doncaster. We have, of course, got more semi-final action from the Totally Wicked Stadium. Wigan women, Leeds women in action, and of course Huddersfield versus Warrington in the men's competition. Gents, I can't really believe it's that time of year already that we're starting to talk about that big day out under the arch. You've both been there and done it. Kyle, how do you kind of keep that out of your mind when you've got that much else going on in the Super League, but that's there?
Well, first of all, you've just got to, you're going to laugh at me here, old cliche, you do take game at a time, and for those teams that you've mentioned that are in the semi-finals, they've got some big league games coming up before they can even start to look ahead to that. But, once the game's there, you'd be a liar if you weren't lying in bed the night before a semi-final thinking, right, if we just get this job done, then we're there, It's the best day. It was the best day of my career, both times that I got to play there. It's everything that... there's a certain generation that still believes in the magic of the cup, I think, and still sees that, that such iconic game, the trophy, everything about it. For me, it was better than winning the grand final. So, that's how much I valued it.
Scully, you were with us last year for that final at Wembley. I don't think there's anyone that was there that day that can dispute the magic of the Challenge Cup. That whole KR and Lee final, it's a special thing, isn't it?
It is. As Kyle said, I think the history of it, the history of the competition, it's what we've all grown up watching. And, going back to semi-finals, it's probably the worst game you could lose. Obviously, and not make it to the big finale. Nobody wants to lose in a final, but you're there, you're part of the big occasion. So, as much as you can't look past the two Super League games that they've got in front of that game, but it will be in the back of the mind, and more so probably the coach on how you look after your players in this next 2 weeks to make sure, because you only get one chance. Super League, the way that fixtures work and playoffs and league tables, Cup is you're either in or you're out.
Well, let's turn our attention back to the Betfred Super League, starting off on Thursday night. Two of the genuine heavyweights. It's a grand final rematch, but slightly strangely, Carl, I didn't think we'd be saying this. Two teams coming into it looking to put it right off the back of surprising defeats. Wigan and Catalans.
Yeah, both teams will have certainly referenced defensive attitude this week. No doubt about that whatsoever. I think Wigan are favourites for this one. I think, I think there will be a reaction from Catalan, but I just think that. Sorry, he said Saints. Then I think Wigan at home. Wigan at home will manage to get over the Dragons. I think.
No doubt, Scully, that both teams, both setups are good enough to put the errors from last week right. Having said that, if you were looking at the points both teams conceded, you'd probably be going, we can go and score a few here as well. Yeah,
definitely. I think they're both capable of scoring points, and absolutely no doubt. But like I say, both coaches will be focused on improving that defence. And Wigan, I know, knowing Matty Pete, Wigan have always prided themselves on defence. Catalan maybe not so. I know Steve Max, obviously, but the French like to play with a lot of flair as well. Catalan, they've lost the last two games, one in the Challenge Cup and then obviously Super League. But previous to that, winning 5 games, including Warrington and Saints in that. So they've showed what they're capable of. They're up there at the top of the league. So yeah, I expect a response from both sides, but I will go with home advantage and go for a Wigan win.
Friday night, Salford travel to Huddersfield. Feels pretty evenly matched this in terms of just what we've seen so far this season, but it's an interesting clash of styles as well, I think, Scully. The kind of pragmatism of Huddersfield and Ian Watson, and then Paul Rowley's, the rolly ball as I call it, the kind of off-the-cuff Salford style. Yeah, as you say, there's always that Ian Watson influence in this game, being the ex-Salford coach, and again, both teams who will be looking for who will think they're going into this game to win. And Huddersfield, as you said, they'll be disappointed with that loss at Saints. Huddersfield very, very structured, as you say, under Ian Watson, and Salford, who knows what you're going to get.
Do you know what I love about this, though? Right at the start, you mentioned the points and how congested it all is. Each and every week we come in here and we look at these games, you can't call them. You know what I mean? Like, you Wigan Catalan, you can't. How do you call Huddersfield Salford? Given where both teams are playing, I think it's just brilliant for the game at the moment that we've got these games where. Do your best to pick a winner there.
We'll pick a winner then.
Right. Huddersfield. I'll go Huddersfield. I've got to stick to me guns and I'll go Huddersfield.
Yeah, I'm going to go Huddersfield. I think if both teams play to the best potential, I think Huddersfield have got it.
One that probably bit sadly is easier to pick Leeds versus London.
Maybe spoke too soon then, didn't I? So, yeah, look.
It probably comes at the right time for Leeds.
No, Leeds. I think for the fans of Leeds as well, they'd want to see a lot of tries. They want to see a bit of flair, a bit of quality, a bit of skill in there as well. And look, poor old London. They were handed a poison chalice, being promoted from 5th. Mike Eccles obviously then taking the role on full time. By all accounts, he never really wanted to be a full time coach, but he's found himself in there. Look, they're doing the best of what they can. They know that pretty much they're on a hiding to nothing in terms of a chance of staying up. I fully expect a Leeds Rhinos heavy win here for London, of course, though. But they've just got to make sure that the players in that squad are doing enough to be noticed elsewhere. I think for next year and earn a Super League contract. So it's not all over for those guys. Leeds.
I think with London, there's no lack of effort. I think we've seen that in their performances this year. It's probably just a lack of quality, like you said. They've stepped up from a division below. But I see this as a game that they won't be scared of.
Oh no!
On Leeds, you don't know. Again, we've said it numerous times. You don't know what you're going to get, and I just think London will come all guns blazing, and see what happens.
Not to sound at risk of sounding quite condescending from a London perspective, they just need to enjoy the ride as well, don't they? Like, there's players in there that aren't going to be Super League players next year. Enjoy it whilst you're there.
I don't think it's condescending. I think it's being a realist. I think we have to, they have to accept what they were, the cards that they were given, and the very nature and the brutality of week on week Super League. It's so demanding, and they're finding that now. Big heavy loss. They're in that middle part where your bodies are starting to be a bit sore. There doesn't seem to be any light at the end of the tunnel. The emotion of the start of the season, like I mentioned, is gone. You're just in the grind now, and they've got to find ways. And look, they will get somebody. I've been saying it every week. I'm still waiting. They'll get somebody, Lewis.
I just said, Scully, that the London game's probably come at a good time for Leeds. I'd have said the same thing about the Hull FC game from a Warrington perspective maybe 7 days ago, but there might just be a few more nerves, a few more people tuning into this one as well, given the display that Hull
I
FC
think
put in.
it's definitely a different game than would have said 2 weeks ago with the Hull FC performance. But I think, as you said, they showed a lot more energy, a lot more commitment against that Leeds side. Warrington, they just need to, if they're serious contenders, this is a game that they've got to get back to show that performance that they did 2 weeks ago against St Helens, and they've got to do that more consistently. Sam Burgess, knowing him as I do, he won't be happy with that performance. Some of them Salford tries are just not acceptable in this level.
OKR versus St Helens, Carl. This is another one that just throw it all up in the air, see where it falls. Absolutely anything happens here.
Yeah, no, you're right. You could put that in with the Wigan Catalan Huddersfield Salford game for sure, but I actually think OKR win this. I think there's a lot of good feel around the place. They've got everything off the pitch right. They've got a huge fan. It's a sellout as well, I'm already led to believe. And I think OKR are just, they're enjoying being sat at the top of their wave at the moment, and they're riding it really well. I think the pressure's on St Helens to go over there. Difficult place, any time to go. But I actually think OKR win this one.
Bigger test as any, Scully, isn't this, for St Helens' credentials for this year?
Yeah, because it's not a happy hunting ground for St Helens. Never has been. But you're going up against a team who are riding high with confidence, playing really well. Saints, it's mad when you come off a win against Huddersfield. Yeah, everybody's so negative about how the team are currently playing, and I think they've got to step it up this week if they are to win. I agree with Carl. I think OKR are favourites.
Just on the St Helens side of things, and we referenced it loads last year. Even though they were still sat in sort of second and third and first at times, it was their attack that let them down, wasn't it? And they managed to still stay. And the amount of times we said, but they still sat second. But ultimately, it was when they went over to Catalan, it was their attack that really cost them in the end. And I don't think we've seen a significant improvement on last season's attack. I think at times at the start of the year when they were, I think back to that great win they had at Huddersfield when it was 28-0 and that, but they're almost being a bit inconsistent with that. 1 week you get it, then you don't, and I think their attack is lacking really.
And to do that, to get it 1 week and not get it the next, for me, and it's easy to pinpoint, to point the finger at a coach. Players have got to take responsibility.
Yeah.
How 1 week you can turn it on and then another week you don't. It's their performance. They cross the white line. and it's up to them to deliver. And at the moment, they're not doing that.
We'll move on to the final game of the weekend, Lee versus Cass, Scully. Two teams obviously at the bottom end of the table, but the difference this week is it's two teams coming into this both on the up.
Yeah, great to see. I think two great performances. Castleford, always nice to see them back with playing with confidence. Got a few players back as we spoke about. I think they'll be doing it tough this week though. I think Lee at home. Lee are a good side, great attacking side as we've seen. 30 points they put past Catalan, and for me, probably the two best halfbacks in the competition in Matt Moylan and Lachlan Lamb. I just think they both play at the line. They both attract defenders. And both play with flair. You don't know what you're going to get with Lee.
Moylan's growing, Scully, isn't he now? At the start he was a bit slow. He didn't. You thought a man with his credentials. Yeah, I expected a bit more from him, but he's after a couple of weeks, maybe 4 or 5 rounds, we're now starting to see. The pitches are drying up. We're now starting to see a classy halfback there.
Yeah, and what I like with both of them, they've both got running games. As a halfback, your biggest threat has got to be your run first. And I think that's the success that Ulke are having with Mikey Lewis. He's not a player you can sit back and let him play, because he'll tie you in knots, and that creates then space for the players around you. And I think that's the case at Lee.
I think Lee are the last club out of that sort of where they're sat and below. They're the last club that if they get this next middle third right, they can sneak into the playoffs here. They're just sat right at the bottom of that pile. A good couple of results coming up over the next couple of weeks could see them certainly right back in that top 6.
Yeah, fascinating time of year, this kind of middle third. It always is. We're running out of time, gents. Just before we wrap things up, I'd just like to pick up on a real good news story from the weekend. At the beginning of the season, Bradford Bulls fullback Tom Holmes announced he was taking a break from the game after being diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. He was given the all clear a few weeks ago to return to action, and this weekend scored in his first game back for Bradford against Widnes. Brilliant to see. All of our thoughts with Tom, of course. Just a Rugby League throws up these stories, and another really nice one.
Yeah, look, what he's had to go through there, him and his family, for him to be given the all clear and back doing what he loves, absolutely brilliant, and a really, really nice way to sort of to finish off this programme as well. Credit to him.
Yeah, that is all we've got time for, gents. A pleasure, as ever, having you with us in the studio. And Kyle, of course, you'll be alongside me on Sunday as we bring you Keighley Cougars versus Hunslet from Betfred League One, live and exclusive right here on the Sportsman Rugby League. Hit that subscribe button. And, of course, we'll be back next week with the last tackle. We'll see you soon.